Before we dive in, if you're drawn to the stories most people are too afraid to tell, make sure you subscribe. What you're about to hear will stay with you long after the video ends. Casuarina Prison sits on the far edge of Western Australia like a concrete warning to anyone who thinks they're untouchable. Locals call it the monster, a fortress for the state's most dangerous men, and a place where reputations aren't just built, they're carved. Our story begins on a winter morning when the sky was the color of bruised steel and the streets of Fremantle were still half asleep. Police sirens sliced through the quiet, lights bouncing off wet pavement as officers closed in on a man whose name whispered through WA's underworld like a storm warning: Darius Cole. For nearly a decade, Darius had been the shadow behind a multi-million-dollar trafficking ring stretching from Perth's nightclub districts to remote mining towns. He was smart, disciplined, and always 2 steps ahead. But on this morning, something slipped. A surveillance wire worn by one of his closest associates picked up a coded conversation, a conversation that investigators finally decoded, giving them the first solid link tying Darius to a warehouse where drugs were stored and processed. When Darius realized the police were onto him, he bolted. The chase cut through backstreets, over fences, and across the cracked concrete of abandoned lots. Officers claimed he moved with a kind of calm urgency, as if he had rehearsed an escape like this 100 times. But even he couldn't outrun the inevitable. A patrol car blocked his path. He looked around once, twice, then raised his hands. No words. No fight. The kingpin, who had evaded arrest for years, surrendered in complete silence. Inside the interrogation room, detectives pushed photo after photo across the table: stash houses, ledgers, coded messages, the testimonies of former allies. Darius didn't flinch. He knew they wanted answers: names, routes, suppliers. Instead, he stared at the wall clock ticking above the door, as if time itself meant more to him than anything they could threaten. 6 months later, after a trial that gripped the state, he was sentenced to 30 years. No parole for 23. The judge called him calculating, dangerous, and responsible for poisoning communities. But the only phrase Darius seemed to react to was the last one: "You will be remanded to Casuarina Prison." That was the moment his jaw tightened. Casuarina wasn't just another maximum security facility. It was the end of a line. A place with razor-wire horizons, towering walls, and a reputation for swallowing men whole. Once you went in, you had 2 choices: fade into the chaos, or become something else entirely. On his first day inside, as officers escorted him through the echoing corridors, inmates pressed their faces to reinforced windows, staring at him like they were studying a new predator entering the ecosystem. Some nodded with respect. Others whispered to each other, already calculating what his presence could mean. But there was one man in particular whose reaction stood out. In Unit 5, sitting alone at a cafeteria table, was Malik Stroud, a notorious prison figure who had written 2 books from behind bars. Books that had turned him into a pseudo-celebrity. Malik was known for shaping young inmates, pulling strings, and creating alliances that stretched far beyond the walls. When Darius walked in, Malik lifted his eyes slowly, then smiled. Not warmly, knowingly, as though he had been expecting him. And that was the first sign that Darius's arrival wasn't just another inmate transfer. Something unspoken was already in motion. What Darius didn't know, what no one on the outside realized, was that his fall had set off a chain reaction inside Casuarina. Old rivalries, hidden debts, power shifts waiting to erupt. And just 3 days after he entered the prison, a sealed envelope was found under his cell door. No name, no handwriting, just one sentence: "You're not here by accident." Everything changed after that. Darius Cole stared at the envelope for almost an hour before touching it. In Casuarina Prison, nothing appeared without a reason. A scrap of paper could be a warning, a demand, or the beginning of something far more dangerous. When he finally opened it, the message was brutally simple: "We know who set you up." No signature, no threats, just a promise or a trap. That night, the prison hummed with its usual low-level menace. Doors slammed. Boots echoed through the hallways. Somewhere in the distance, Two inmates argued until a guard barked them silent. But Darius lay awake, replaying the last week before his arrest. He had been careful, paranoid, strategic. The only way someone could have slipped the police that coded conversation was if someone close to him had been bought or broken. On day 4, he got his first clue. During morning yard time, an inmate approached him, a thin, twitchy man with a nervous habit of tapping his fingers against his thigh. "Stroud wants a word," the man said. Malik Stroud, the inmate author, the man whose books had turned him into a cult-like figure among prisoners who followed his rules like scripture. He wasn't just respected, he was feared. Darius followed the messenger across the yard to a shaded corner where Stroud waited, sitting on a bench like a king holding court. "You've caused quite a stir," Malik said without looking up. "Casuarina hasn't buzzed like this in years." "Not my intention," Darius replied. Malik smirked. "Intent doesn't matter here. Only control." There was a dangerous confidence about him, not loud, not showy, but absolute. He gestured for Darius to sit. "I heard about the envelope," Malik said. "And before you ask, no, it didn't come from me. But I can tell you this much. Someone inside these walls knows why you're here. And it wasn't just the police that wanted you off the streets." Darius studied him. "Then who?" Malik leaned in, voice dropping to a whisper. "Someone who's been waiting for you to fall. Someone who benefits from your absence." It was cryptic, typical Malik, but the implication was clear. His empire, even dismantled, still had enemies hungry for the scraps. Before Darius could respond, a warning siren blared. Guards shouted. Inmates scattered. Two prisoners were trading blows near the fence line, and in seconds the situation escalated. A weapon flashed. Officers tackled them to the ground, and the yard went into lockdown. As guards forced everyone against the wall, Malik said one last thing under his breath. "Watch who talks to you. Not everyone in blue is on your side." That night, a second note was slipped under Darius's door. This one was more urgent. "He's in here. Move carefully." Darius clenched the paper so tightly it wrinkled. He, someone specific, someone who had betrayed him and followed him behind bars. The next day, he received an unexpected visitor, an internal investigator named Harris. Calm, professional, and too observant. She claimed she was doing a routine intake follow-up, but her questions were anything but routine. "Did anyone in your network know about the coded warehouse message before you moved product?" she asked. He shook his head. "Just 2 people. And one of them is in this facility," she said plainly. Darius froze. Harris slid a printed photo across the table. It showed a man in Casuarina uniform, eyes hollow, jaw sharp, posture tense. The name beneath it nearly stopped his breathing. Jonas Reed. Jonas had been one of his closest lieutenants, loyal, smart, dependable. Or so he thought. "He was transferred here 2 months before your arrest," Harris said. "And he's been trying very hard not to attract attention." The pieces clicked with painful precision. Jonas's sudden money problems, the shift in his behavior, the night he insisted on double-checking the coded message. He had sold Darius out, and now he was hiding within the very walls meant to contain them both. Harris leaned forward. "If he fears you, he might talk. If he talks, we learn who bought him." Darius understood exactly what she was offering. A chance at answers, but also a chance at disaster. Confronting a betrayer inside Casuarina wasn't a conversation. It was a spark waiting to ignite a riot. That night, Darius spotted Jonas across the cafeteria. Their eyes locked for less than a second, but it was enough. Jonas turned away. Fast. Too fast. He was hiding something. And the next morning, Darius woke to find a third note under his door. This one chilled him more than the others. "Jonas isn't the only one who wants you dead." Jonas Reed didn't come to breakfast the next morning, or lunch, or afternoon muster. And in Casuarina Prison, absence was louder than any scream. Darius Cole knew exactly what it meant. Someone had gotten to him first. The third note replayed in his mind with razor-sharp clarity. "Jonas isn't the only one who wants you dead." By evening, tension clung to the air like static. Guards walked faster. Inmates murmured in tight circles. Even the fluorescent lights in Block C flickered more erratically, casting long, blue-tinted shadows along the concrete hallways. When lockdown was called early, Darius felt the shift immediately. Something heavy, calculated, deliberate. Inside his cell, he paced. Jonas being missing meant two possibilities. Either he was hiding, or he had been silenced. Neither gave Darius comfort. Because if Jonas was gone, whoever had bought him wasn't done. They had simply removed a loose end. Then came the fourth and final note. Not slipped under the door this time. Taped directly to the inside of his barred window. Bold and mocking. You're next. No subtlety. No mystery. A direct declaration. But Darius had learned something valuable in Casuarina. Threats were rarely a promise of what someone would do. They were a confession of what someone feared he might do. He sat on his bunk and studied the note. The handwriting was clean, confident. Not rushed, not shaky. Whoever wrote it wasn't panicking. They were planning. And then he realized something. The pressure, the manipulation, the timing, it all felt orchestrated. He thought of Malik Stroud, the author inmate whose books were gospel around the blocks. A man who thrived on psychological games, control, and influence. Was Malik helping him or directing him? The next morning, Darius requested time in the legal library, a neutral zone where gangs held an uneasy truce. A guard escorted him down a long hallway, boots clacking against concrete. When the steel door buzzed open, he saw Malik already inside, seated alone at a table, waiting. Darius sat across from him without speaking. Malik smiled like a teacher pleased with a student's progress. So you've met Jonas, Malik said casually. Where is he? Darius asked. Malik didn't answer immediately. Instead, he tapped a book, one of his own titles, then said, sometimes people crack under pressure. Sometimes they talk. Sometimes they disappear. Did you make him disappear? Malik chuckled. I don't have to touch anyone. People move when they realize staying still means dying. Darius leaned in. Why warn me then? Why the notes? Malik's expression sharpened. Because you weren't supposed to be here. Someone forced your hand. Someone forced mine too. Darius froze. That wasn't the answer he expected. Malik stood, pacing slowly. The man who bought Jonas, he didn't just want you. He wanted everything you built. He wanted the territory, the clients, the fear. And when your empire fell, he stepped right into the vacuum. Darius's heartbeat quickened. Who? Malik stopped walking, looked him dead in the eyes. His name is Dorian Crest. Darius's stomach dropped. Dorian Crest, his one-time business partner, a strategist, a negotiator, a man too calm, too polite, and too ambitious. Darius had once told himself Dorian lacked the stomach for betrayal. Clearly, he had been wrong. Malik continued. Dorian paid Jonas to leak your coded warehouse message. Then he paid him again to transfer here and watch you. And now, he wants Jonas dead so no one can tie him back to the setup. And me? Darius asked quietly. You, Malik said. He wants you erased. Permanently. Darius felt the weight of every decision he had ever made pressed down on him. All the streets he'd run. All the territory he'd fought for. All the trust he'd gambled on men like Dorian. Malik said again. I didn't warn you because I'm your friend. I warned you because Dorian thinks he can run the game from the outside. And I don't tolerate amateurs meddling with my ecosystem. So that was it. Malik wasn't protecting him. Malik was protecting balance. Darius exhaled slowly. Where's Jonas? Malik's answer was soft, almost pitying. You're too late. A knot formed in Darius's throat. Jonas had betrayed him. But he had also been manipulated, used, discarded. In Casuarina, loyalty and survival were currencies bought and sold like anything else. That night, alarms blared across the prison. Guards rushed through the corridors. Inmates were ordered to their cells. A medical emergency was announced in C Block. Darius already knew what it meant. Jonas Reed was gone. But the twist came the next morning. A guard slid a sealed envelope through Darius's door. He recognized the handwriting instantly. Elegant, neat, calculated. It was from Dorian Crest. Inside was a single sentence. "If you get out before me, remember, I only finished what you started." Darius stared at the paper for a long time. There was no rage, no grief, just a cold, settling realization. The war didn't end inside Casuarina Prison. It would begin there. And when the day came, one of them wasn't leaving alive. If viewers thought this story was intense, the next one would make them question everything they thought they understood about loyalty, power, and betrayal.